Hey, this is your host, Craig Domann, and this is Pro Mindset Podcast. And we have a gentleman on as a guest today by the name of Michael Allison. And Michael has a lot of credentials. So just bear with me for a moment as I share some of these things. Probably the most, besides being a Purple Heart recipient, he is almost a bridge jumper. And we're going to get into that in a little bit later, but I know you don't know anybody else on the planet that's almost a bridge jumper, and Michael's one of those people. But Michael is CEO and founder of the Adversity Academy. Michael's a father. He's a podcaster. He's a speaker. Are you an author too?
That's right. I'm an author as well, working on my second book now.
Holy smokes. And you have been through some very interesting things.
Yes.
So without further ado, Michael, welcome to Pro Mindset today.
Hey, Craig, it's an absolute pleasure to be here, brother, man. I've been looking forward to this conversation with you, man, to share my knowledge, share things that I've experienced. Hopefully, it could be a blessing to your audience, man. So thank you, man.
Amen. Okay, let's start out with your story. Share your story, and let's go back. Let's not go back to high school football.
Okay.
When you got bulldozed over and pancaked by somebody, okay? When you were supposed to be the pancaker, you were the pancakee. Let's go back to like the life-changing events that you've had that started with, I can't remember if you were in Iraq. Where were you at?
I was
When
in
that bomb
Iraq. I was in Iraq. There's quite a few life-changing things that occurred to me. When it comes to like being an adult, I could start off from where I joined the United States Marine Corps, and you're coming from the family background that I come from, the only one that enlisted in the military. Your family is already scared and terrified that you're probably going to go to war, and then 9/11 hits, and that seems like a true reality of something that's going to happen. And lo and behold, it did. It was out in California training, and Captain Venning came up to us and told us, boys, we're up next, and we're going to be a part of the invasion into Iraq. And we started training, preparing, doing all of our simulations and things like that, taking indoors, do different shooting simulations and different like formations and things like that, preparing what Iraq could simulate with a simulation, what it could look like. And we flew from California to Seattle, from Seattle to Canada, from Canada to Germany, from Germany to Kuwait, and from Kuwait we had a convoy all the way into Fallujah, Iraq. One of the most quietest, scariest rides that you could ever take, with over 100 tanks and Humvees just rolling into a city. And we're a target as we're doing this, so we're fully loaded, prepared for anything to happen to us. And as soon as we got there to the FOB, which is the Forward Operating Base, within an hour of us pairing, getting our briefings and things like that from Captain Finning, we're incoming! And everyone just runs to the bunkers and try to find cover and shelter. And all you see is nothing but smoke and rocks and things just blowing right in front of everybody. And this is when I knew, like, this is real and war is real, and you could lose your life in any second, any moment. One of the thing that stuck out to me as soon as I got there was a sign that said "Complacency kills." And that, as soon as I saw that, I saw it, but then the incoming came, and it was really like alarming to know that, like, if you get caught slipping out here in this situation, if you have a mistake or something like that, you could die. So with that being said, man, we got there, settled in, and the first mission that we went on, we were providing security for another unit outside of Fallujah. And that night, an RPG shoots over my tank, lands behind me, and thank God I'm alive. But from there, we had to shoot up the entire building and level the entire building. So whatever was in it, we leveled it and destroyed the thing. From there, we've been on many different missions, many different convoys, but it was the last convoy that we were on, and we just had our 20-year reunion with the guys that I served with, and some of the stuff that we did over there was top secret, so some of the information could not be shared. But recently, some of it was shared, and we were over there with we're Amtrackers, tankers, if you want to say. We carry the infantry, but we was over there and was losing so many people, and so many units were not being able to come in and replace us, and we had to turn into infantry guys. And with that being said, being turned into infantry guys, we had to get on the ground and we had to start knocking on doors, shooting, protecting, and all these other things and stuff like that. And from that part of the operation, we lost 5 people because now we're no longer inside of tanks. We're operating either on our feet or we're operating out of Humvees. With that being said, man, the last mission that we were on, we were with the Iraqi soldiers that was attached to us, and we got ambushed, and we eventually made it out of there. We captured the guys that tried to kill us, and then we turned them in. After turning them in, we went to go resupply. So we got more ammunition, more water, more food. And then we're coming back out to get linked back up to our current company. And as we're delivering the supplies that we just picked up, our company is in a 360 perimeter type of setup. And we enter, and on the inside, we're going around counterclockwise, distributing all of the supplies. And once we got to the last Humvee, inside this Humvee is the driver, Hernandez, Salto, he's the driver. We have the doc, he's on the driver's side, and my gunny was hanging out in the back. And we give them the supplies. We have a brief conversation with them, and we pull off. And 7 seconds away from that, I heard the loudest explosion that I could ever hear in my life. The explosion hit the Humvee that was sitting there with those people. The shrapnel from that car bomb, which was a 500-pound car bomb, struck me, hit me above the eye, injured my shoulder. My body was halfway out of the turret of the tank. So knocked me down, knocked me inside of it, injured my back, knocked me out. Once I came back to, I had a Castanelli in the back. He pulled me down, got me out, wake me up, checked me out, make sure I was okay. And I had Lance below was my driver. And once we got out of the vehicle, we went over there to try to provide first aid and render everything that we could to do to save people. It's nothing but smoke, dust of cloud, orange, the smell of metal, the smell of blood, the smell of death, if you want to say. And I saw my gunny covered up in smoke, and blood is running out of his ears. The doctor lost half of his leg. The driver, the gunner Hernandez, lost half of his face. You can see his eyeballs was missing. And my best friend Sosa that we're just talking to, this is somebody that me and him, he's from Jamaica as well. He's from Wisconsin, and Wisconsin was the school that I was supposed to go play football at. So me and him had a tight bond. This is somebody I used to watch back then. Used to watch like DVDs on those like flip up DVDs. So this is somebody I used to watch DVDs, movies with, and things like that, bootleg movies and stuff. And to see him lifeless and dead, really like was an eye awakening for me in regards to like, as sad as this is, to know what the reality of war and what does it look like. With that being said, man, we had to shoot our way out of there because they started attacking us from there. Those guys got medevaced, and from there, man, in regards to like seeing what war and experiencing war, I got out of service after serving for 8 years. And if you want to talk about a little more adversities and things like that, man, I did go back to work into corporate America. But I bottled up a whole bunch of things when it comes to like PTSD and mental health, because that's something that I never wanted to talk about. So I bottled all those emotions for like about 10 years. And with me bottling up some of those things, then my life kind of went up on a roller coaster until I figured things out. With that being said, I ended up getting a DUI. I got divorced 2 times. I tried to commit suicide when I was at my deepest, lowest point in my life, when I was on my second divorce on 13 different medications. And at that particular point, in that moment in my life, that's when I decided that I needed to change my life and change some things that was going on, because it was very, very, very dark. I was in a very dark place and my life was going south.
That is a lot, my man. That's a lot. Let me ask you something. What does RPG stand for? You guys in the military have all these acronyms, and that one flew over my head. What is it?
Yeah, RPG is a rocket propelled grenade. It's something where you drop a mortar rocket inside of it, and then it shoots just like a grenade once it's ignited.
Not a place you want to be.
No.
Okay. So the end result of this is you lost your best friend. You got probably indoctrinated to war before you were really ready, especially mentally.
Yes.
I don't know how you get ready for war mentally, but you just enlisted and you're going, right?
I was 23, 24 years old. So I just turned 23 at that particular moment in my life. And now I'm a leader in charge of all of these troops, in charge of making big time decisions. With rules of engagement is shoot anything that's moving, kill anything that's moving, so it was a lot of responsibility for someone at such a young age.
Absolutely. Okay. So you were on 13 meds. You were divorced a couple times. You said you were in a dark place and you were suicidal.
Yeah.
Take us to the moment in time and describe your suicidal attempt and what was going through your mind before, what was premeditated, and then obviously you didn't do it. So what stopped you from doing it?
Yeah. So at that particular time in my life, my second marriage, but my previous marriage, I was going through a very rough child custody battle with my ex-wife. And that was where I was going to court almost every single month. I was also flying back and forth from Washington, D.C., all the way to Miami, Florida to see my son. And I was staying in a hotel, I was getting rental cars and paying a lawyer fee and things like that. I want to tell you, I'm not saying the money is a big deal, but I want to tell you that I probably spent close to probably like 60, 70K over this time span, just like hotels, rental cars, lawyer fees, you name it. And that right there was another bit of frustration that was going on for me. And then I was in another relationship, and this relationship was going great. And then after 6 months, things just started going south. Within this, we're a blended family, and we got into an argument, got into a big fight around New Year's. And around that particular moment, around that particular time, I was not in the greatest space, and a lot of things that went on in between within that argument and that fight around New Year's, and I filed for divorce. And filing for that divorce, I relocated to Tampa, Florida. And while I'm living there in Tampa, Florida, I'm at a very dark place because now to me internally, I'm on my second divorce. I'm going through this custody battle. I can't function at my job or do my job correctly. So at this particular moment, I started getting like PTSD treatment. And what I'm finding out is I'm going through a variation of different psychiatrists and mental health counselors and things like that, up to the point of I keep on getting different like prescribed medications over like a 2-year time span. And up to within that 2-year time span, I'm on 13 different medications for being highly suicidal, depression, anxiety, sleeping, all these different things that's functioning going on inside of my head. At this particular moment, I have not addressed anything that has occurred when I served in Iraq. So I never went to go see a counselor to deal with any grief, any guilt, some of those things that I was dealing with at that particular moment. In addition to that, I had some childhood trauma and things that had occurred for me at a young age. So addressing some of those things I've never dealt with. And then being there in Tampa, Florida, the job became much more frustrating for me. And I got into just drinking on the job. I was working from home, so I was drinking on the job. In this in this particular moment, I just got into a very deep, dark place and didn't see the point of living, didn't see the point of going on. And I came to the conclusion that I'm going to end my life because I don't see a purpose for myself or a purpose for my life. So I got my gun. I was drunk. I started drinking early on that afternoon. And then I said, what is a way for me to, if I kill myself, to make sure that no one finds me or I didn't come back from this. So inside of my garage, I was living by myself, so there was no one with me. And I got the biggest weight that was in my garage, which was a 60, 70-pound barbell. And I went to the bridge that was there in Tampa, Florida. And I went to that bridge, gun fully loaded, and I was going to take my life, shoot myself, make sure I landed off of the bridge into the ocean. And I tied the weights to my leg. But it was within that moment, God started speaking to me. God started prophesying over me and telling me in regards to like, you have a purpose and you have a mission. You have a son that needs to see his father. You grew up in a household where suicide is not an option. Suicide is not a thing, where you're put on this earth for a purpose. And now, you could actually turn things around and go and get the help that you need, where you could go back into this world and start helping people. And it was kind of like a sobering moment where things opened up for me. It was kind of like my mom was speaking to me through God and stuff like that. And I just started crying, started bawling. And obviously I did not do it. But it was in that moment where I had a revelation where this is not right. This is not something that I should be doing. And I have so much more to give and offer to this world.
Here's something that's very interesting about, number one, I'm glad you didn't do it because of the impact that you're making on your community through your business, through your ministry and all that stuff. But the contrast is very interesting. In your darkest moment, you had your clearest vision of your purpose. In your darkest moment is when things became like real to you through all these things I just wrote down that you just said. Through your drinking, your child trauma, your money drain, your second divorce, your custody battle, your ineffectiveness at work, your purposelessness, your PTSD issues, and taking over a couple of years, 13 medications. And it was at that moment that you had an encounter with the Lord that allowed you to see that you did have a purpose on this planet, and it didn't make any sense to go through with what you were planning to go through with.
Yeah, man. As you're telling me that, I never really like reflected on, that was a moment or eye awakening moment for me, and knowing that sowing all the seeds that I did to build up to even getting up on this podcast and speaking with you and just speaking my truth, speaking my story, and just being totally authentic and transparent with your audience. It's it's a good feeling now to know that obviously I didn't do that, but to know that now I'm here making an impact and helping people just through my story, man. So it's absolutely a good feeling just to hear that, man. Wow.
Well, I happened to go to men's breakfast this morning, and we had a special speaker, and he was a plane crash survivor.
Hmm.
And he talked about the concept that we all have plane crashes. And I have them, you have them, you had them. We'll continue to have them. Everybody's got them.
Right.
And how you respond is sometimes more revealing than what the plane crash was. So you're making an impact not because of being on a bridge outside the railing, looking down at the water, holding a gun in your hand, and being weighed down with dumbbells, and having a conversation in your mind with your creator, with your mom, and probably other people that are important to you. It's really what you did after that. It's how you responded to that. That's really how you've made your purpose shown to the world. So why don't you share for a second, what do you do? How are you making an impact on people? What is your company? What is your mission? You speak, you do all these things. You train, you coach.
Yeah, so from that moment, that's what catapulted me to where I'm at now today. And I never knew that would get me to where I'm at now today. But I just knew that I had a purpose, a bigger purpose, a higher purpose that God was calling me to do. And as I was taking these different steps, I always talk about things around decision, direction, and destination. And once I started allowing God to be my CEO and allowing God to lead me, it provided so much clarity. It provided so much alignment in regards to aligning myself to Him and finding my divine purpose. So yes, I'm the founder and CEO of the Adversity Academy, but best believe God is the CEO of this company, and I follow Him in regards to like the vision that He's given me and telling me to go out here and do. So our company offers personal development training, and we also offer leadership development training for companies and individuals as well. So we have training all the way from the CEO executive level, all the way down to your sports teams, all the way down to women's leadership and middle management leadership as well. The personal development programs, they come in 12-week courses to half-day courses to whole-day courses. And we also have a 5-day retreat for all of our programs and services that we do offer. And I got into that because once I got off of that bridge, I wanted to figure out a way, how can I change my life and make an impact into this world? So for myself, I started digging into personal development first. And personal development started for me to take accountability and responsibility and working on the inside of me first before I could even go out here and start helping other people and blessing other people and things like that. So I went to Rush University and I started deep diving into what is mental health, what is PTSD, what is some of the things that's tied to the neuro-linguistic programming of things, what is tied to traumatic brain injury, what were some of the things, and I discovered a lot about myself and what are the things that were triggering me and how I was responding and how I was behaving, and understanding some of the deeper issues and things that I needed to work with. To double down back on that, I went to Emory Hospital in Atlanta, and I went over there and I got with the doctors and the people that was there to work on some of the things that were tied to PTSD and mental health again, so I could understand what was going on with me mentally, for me to get to a point of being suicidal, for me to even having so much guilt and remorse and things like that. Because to tell you the truth, Craig, when Salto died and that car bomb went off, for a very long time, I had a lot of guilt because I was the one that was going around handing off supplies. I just drove by where this car came from. And a long time I was saying to myself, why didn't I see that vehicle? And kind of thinking that it was my fault that I missed that because I just drove past that car that was sitting there. And the same car, as soon as I pulled off, drove into this Humvee and killed my best friend. So I had a lot of guilt built up on the inside where I thought my actions could have been different and changed the outcome of what occurred, where I could have yelled or done something or mentioned over the radio or something like that. All of these are what if type of scenarios. And it was over at Emory Hospital where we actually played out quite a few different things through so they did a lot of things with the imagery and replaying and setting up through the AI back then is different compared to AI back now, but it kind of did some AI things in regards to like place level vehicles and replaying the scenarios and things like that and showing where you were not at fault with some of these things for me to actually like gain the concept of believing that this was going inevitable to happen anyways. With that being said, man, I've started working on some things in regards to like being a better dad, being a better father, being a better person that's going to serve humanity and have a better outlook on life and things like that to change my positivity. Have a whole lot more gratitude. Have a lot more self-reflection, and working on some of those things through various different programs and things like that. Starting incorporating different mentors, starting incorporating different books, starting going to different conferences, started to integrating myself with different circles, starting to removing some of the toxic and negative things that was in my life, started removing things around alcohol and things getting off of medications and things like that. Those are all the things that I had to start removing from my life. And it wasn't easy. It was a choice and a decision that I had to make. And once I did that, I found that my life was starting to turn in a much more positive way. Doors were starting to open up with different people coming into my life and wanting to help me. Once I opened up my mouth and say, hey, I'm not perfect and I need help. For the most part, I suffered in silence. I never really told anybody what I was going on with. So I was the kind of person that at work that really did well at work and excelled. So I would get promotions. People thought that everything was going on in my life, but in my personal life, things was not jiving and things was not going well for me. So that's when I had to start reaching out for help. I eventually got into a men's group, and the men's group at my church called the Freedom Group. Those guys started working on me and pouring into me, and we did the Freedom Group 3 times. And it's a 12-week course that you had to work on to free yourself of all of the things that are keeping you in bondage. And throughout that entire course, the first time I did it, I did not give it 100%. It's 12 weeks, and I went through about 5 weeks. And I said, if I'm going to commit to God, if I'm going to commit to this, I'm going to commit to being a better person, then I got to be fully involved. So I went back again and I completed the entire course, 100% into the course. And it was one of the best things that I've ever did, where I was holding on to so many things that was like anchoring me down. And once I was able to get alignment and understand why some of these things happening to me and why am I out here doing what I do now, was through the Freedom Course. I realized that all of these adversities that I've been through, all of these challenges, I now turn those into my gifts. And now I turn those into my programs. I turn that into my story. I turn that into my keynote. I turn that into my book. And what I've realized is my story is now a blessing to other people when I share some of the lessons and some of the things that I've did in between that to help make an impact into people's lives.
That's awesome. A lot of times our messes become our messages.
Yes.
And what you described is an inside game. It's an inside game. Everything you did was in the dark. It was inside. It wasn't outside. You weren't working on how your lawn looked, what kind of car you drove, what kind of clothes you wore. You were working on the inside. And when you finally finished that program and got freedom, one of the things that I have with Pro Mindset is the idea that if you want to perform in the flow, if you want to be in the flow, you want to be in the zone, so to speak, you have to operate out of a position of freedom and peace.
Yeah.
And confidence and belief. And if you can't find freedom, confidence in what you do, and belief in who you are, you cannot be your best self. And the reality of it is, all you have to do is be you. But we're all scared to be who we are because we don't think we're enough. But that's all God wants us to do, is to be the best version of ourselves, right? So Um, I had a gentleman that spoke today after being in that plane crash. He had PTSD.
Yeah.
I've known with PTSD, but he really broke it down. He broke it down into 4 stages. You have survivor's guilt. You talked about that.
Yeah.
You have anger. You
Yeah.
have meaning. You don't feel like your life's meaning has meaning. And then you go through a state of depression. Is that consistent with the stages that you went through?
That's exactly consistent, man. I never knew what PTSD was, and like I said, I didn't come from a military background or family or anything like that. So anything that has to do with the military is either what a drill instructor told me, it's either what a recruiter told me, or something that I've seen from either like Rambo or some movie or something like that. You know what I mean? So and then what I'm getting at is like when you see some of those things from the past, they used to talk about like shell shock, and I never understand what shell shock was until nowadays they say it's PTSD. So when I was going through some of those phases and things like that, Craig, I didn't know because there's a couple of reasons why I never went to go get help. The first reason why was around employment. So when I got out of the service, it was around 2007. Based off of information that I was hearing from people, if you was to tell anyone that you had PTSD or any mental health issues, it was shunned upon. So to go inside of a workforce or tell anybody within a workforce that you had any mental health issues, you probably was not going to get that job. For myself at that time, I needed to get a job. So I didn't talk about the military. I didn't talk about mental health or anything like that, man, for close to 10 years. So that's when I talk about like breaking the bottle. I bottled up everything that occurred to me in the Marine Corps for 8 years. I never spoke to anybody about that. Anything that occurred to me as a child, I never spoke about that. So all those things are going on for myself, and I never knew how to deal with it. So I suffered in silence, so it led to the depression. It led to the anger and outbursts where it may show up in my family. It came out where like I couldn't sleep, or I'm driving in my car. I worked on a railroad, and I'll pull over on the side of the road and I just like started crying for some reason, or I'll start having like flashbacks and things like that. I never understood what it was because I never actually went to go see a doctor or anybody to get help for any of these things. And it was not until working on the railroad and I was in Atlanta, Georgia, and it was about 1 o'clock in the morning, and I get a call from the dispatcher saying, "Hey, we have a suicide in Stockbridge." So I show up there, and as soon as I show up, I see a body cut in half, and I'm the train master. So as soon as I show up, for something I've been avoiding my whole life, visions, the memories of seeing dead bodies and things like that. As soon as I show up here in the morning, I see a dead body cut up and stuff like that. And it immediately brought me back to seeing my friend Salto in Iraq. And from there, that's when things started spiraling for me because now I'm starting having flashbacks. I'm starting to have these nightmares and things just started reoccurring for me. And I just started spiraling. And from there, like, that's when I got a DUI. I was going through a divorce at the same time. And I was struggling. I was in a very dark space because I was suffering in silence all by myself.
Okay. I could go a million different directions, Michael. Breaking the bottle. Tell us how do you break the bottle? So you have your story. I have my story. And everybody listening has their own story.
Mhm.
And a lot of people that are listening, and me included, haven't broken the bottle. And we also haven't dealt with our past. And we all have PTSD to a much lesser degree than you had. But everybody's got that going in some fashion. They're angry. They don't know why they're angry. They feel a little depressed. They feel like maybe their purpose in life isn't what they were hoping it would be or they thought it was. Or maybe they're going through a hard time with their relationships or with their money or with their careers or with their health. So how do you help people that are in a bad spot move forward in a positive fashion, utilizing the wisdom that you have from doing it yourself?
The first thing that we're going to do is we're going to actually lay out if once you're ready to come to and get past where you're at now, you have to totally be ready to subject yourself to be totally authentic and totally transparent with yourself and release a whole bunch of things. And for myself, as I put people through the same thing too, I had to put myself through it. So I had to put myself through and I put people through like What are some of the things that are affecting you that is anchoring you down, that's affecting all of your decision makings and things like that? So it comes down to the accountability aspect of things and the responsibility aspects of things, and breaking down the layers of what that is. What are some of the decisions that you were making in the past, and what were tied to some of those decisions that you were making, right? What is the direction that where your life was currently going if you were in a bad space, and what were some of the things that was tied to that in regards to where you're going in life? For myself, I tell people the same example. So what I was doing, I was drinking, right? I was hanging around the wrong people. I was not pouring into myself. I got out of touch with my faith. But I put God in the back seat of my car. He was not no longer in front, like leading me or anything like that. So there's all of these different things. For each person's story, it's different. But what are some of the things that are distractions that are in your life right now that's really anchoring you down? Is it trauma from your parents? Is it trauma from your spouse? Is it something that went on with school? Is it being arrested and things like that? What are some of these things that we need to clean up and clear up to get you past some of that hurdle? And when you're in that space, you're kind of like operating like in a status quo type of space, and you need to get out of that. And that's when you start working on some of the things. For myself, is like we start working on some of the things, like if you're someone that's taking like calculated risk and things like that, what is it that you're doing, right? Because if you're taking risky behaviors and risky choices and things like that, that's what I was doing. And I found myself in very, very dark places and things like that. So now we got to start making smarter choices, smarter decisions, right? Change our life and go in a smarter direction where we're trying to go. Then we just need to identify what are our purpose, what are our values, what are some things that we're going to stand on, right? Once you start identifying what are your purposes and what are your values and things like that, some of the past decisions that you were making, it changes so much in a drastic way. It makes it so much easier to say no to a lot of things and say yes to the right things that you need to say in your life. And as you go through that cycle and you go through that phase and breaking the bottle and shattering some of the things that were holding you back, you can find yourself in a whole another space where you find that your personal growth is on a whole other level, your professional growth is on a whole other level as well.
What do you say to those people that think that the reason why they're stuck is because of their circumstances? The thing that's holding them back is politics at work. What do you say to people that are looking outward instead of inward for their situation?
That's a mindset thing. And I've always said this: control what you can control. You can't control some of the things that you cannot control. So what you can control is what's on the inside. You can control some of the decisions that you're going to make. You can control the actions that you're going to take. So you can't sit up here and play like the blame game or play the victim game or anything like that. I know I was someone like that, where I stayed in that space for close to 10 years, where I played the victim and I didn't want help from anybody or anything like that. But what I realized is once I got out of that space and started taking responsibility and accountability and not relying or blaming anybody for anything, the actions and the results started changing for me. I created much more consistent habits. I started becoming much more disciplined with what I was doing, and realizing that no, this world is not so bad. Things are not so bad. And whether you make the choices and decisions that you're making has no effects on what's going on in politics. It has no effects of what's going on out of outskirts of this world and things like that. So just control what you can control.
One of the ways I look at that, Michael, is if you want to change your circumstances, try changing yourself first.
Absolutely.
Because once you change yourself, everything else changes.
Absolutely.
You cannot change. You cannot make a change in your discipline, in your habits, or your thought process, or your decision making without seeing the world differently. So as soon as you change you change everything. So if you're not happy where you're at, you're not satisfied with your progress, you feel like you're stuck in the mud, so to speak, look in the mirror.
That's where it started. The self accountability. That's what I always tell people. The accountability aspect of things. Once you acknowledge that, so much things change for you. I always remember that when I was serving, the military provides so much structure, so much things for you. But once you get out of the service, you lose all that structure. So like your housing, your food, your bed, your medical, your insurance, all these different things. So now you're out in this world. And that's where a lot of people kind of get lost. I found that's what happened to me when I kind of got out of the service, and I didn't really have that anymore. And that's where I found that like things started trickling for me and started going south. But once I started taking the accountability and putting that responsibility back on myself and have looking inwards, I had to put together the plan for myself to get myself back on my feet. I remember the military is always telling us about the 5 3. Prior planning prevents poor performance, so I had to start preparing and planning for myself to put things in order for myself to start becoming a better father, becoming a better husband, building my company, surrounding myself with better people around me, all those different things, and putting those things in place and start checking off my goals and making sure that they are in alignment with my faith.
What are those 5 P's again?
Prior planning prevents piss poor performance.
That's a lot of P's. That's
It's
six P's.
prior or proper. I've heard it interchanged, prior or proper.
And you also could put preparation instead of planning.
Yeah.
Okay. So if I recall, you have at least one son, right? Or do you
We
have
have
two?
2 boys. We have 2 boys.
Okay. Why don't you share a little bit about your family?
Yeah, man. I have an amazing family, and I'm actually getting ready to speak this week, and I'm going to talk about my family in regards to how things have shifted for me. And I'm now married. My wife is Courtney, and we have 2 boys, Corey and Omar. Corey just graduated from NC State this past Friday, and Omar, he's a 11th grader. He's getting ready to go into his senior year. He's going to be the starting running back for his high school football. But our family, me and Courtney just remarried, just celebrated 1 year anniversary back in March. But she was the same woman that I divorced prior to me trying to commit suicide. And it took years. This is what I say, like we had to work on our relationship. I had to work on the personal development to actually build this relationship back, earn her trust, and get this relationship back together. So being in a blended family and going through a child custody battle, my son had to see his dad leave at a young age. He had to kiss his dad on airplane flights and all these different things. For me, mentally, that was very stressful, trying to deal with that. And getting out of that relationship and getting out of that situation, I get with Courtney and we're starting our new relationship. And then her son doesn't know his dad. His dad was in jail, in and out of jail and things like that. So now he has at 9 years old, he has a new stepdad that's trying to be dad and things like that. So trying to like balance all of these things, me trying to be a dad, me going through a custody situation and things like that, me just getting out of the military. I'm not gonna lie, I did carry some of my military customs and traits into a relationship, which was not healthy inside of a civilian type of relationship. And I didn't understand some of those dynamics and things like that when it comes to being a dad. I grew up with a dad that was there, but when it comes to my dad is from Jamaica, so in regards to like the Jamaican mindset of providing for a family is to work. So my dad was someone that worked two jobs, sometimes 3 jobs, but he was also more so like a provider. So I may see my dad like 6, 7 o'clock in the morning, and I don't see my dad when he comes home until like 11, 12 o'clock at night. So understand what a blueprint is like in regards to like understanding what a dad is or what a dad does. I would not say like all that was clearly put out for me and things like that. Anyhow, getting into my situation and my relationship, I was struggling trying to be a dad, trying to be a stepdad, and all of those factors that had to come with that, which led to after being married for 6 months, led to us having a big argument, big fight, and going on the road of divorce. But while we were going through that phase of separation and divorce, we knew that we really loved each other. We knew that we could actually make this work if we actually put in the work and do our due diligence. So what did we do? We went back to the drawing board and we went back to our counselors, we went back to our pastors and saw like where are the areas that we missed in regards to like building this relationship and have a strong foundation that could build this family. And for us, what we did, we went back to our church, we went back to some of our faith, understanding some of the things baggages that we were carrying into our relationship that we need to shed before we brought it into our relationship. So my wife was dealing with things either from her childhood, she was dealing with things from her ex, she was dealing with things with being a mom, and all those different types of things. For myself, you kind of know already some of the things that I was dealing with that I was not addressing. And inside of the household, we were not talking about some of these things. And we kept all of those issues that we were dealing with very private. And it was not until we started facing some of these issues, facing some of these things, and becoming very transparent with one another that we were both hurt people that needed to fix a lot of things. And we started working on that collectively. And throughout that time span, we started working, building, fixing areas. We had bumps in the roads and things like that, which is expected. But the beauty about that was the communication and the willingness to actually work through that. Within that time span, we did a whole bunch of retreats. We did a couple of retreats with Franklin Graham, with a couple of things with a couple other military nonprofits and things like that to actually touch on the spiritual aspects of our relationship and some of the things that's going to draw us closer together. And from that, man, we eventually got our life back together. I proposed back to her. We got married at our church last year, and we celebrated 1 year in March, man.
Congratulations, Michael.
Thank you, man.
Okay, so bear with me on this because I'm just going to regurgitate a couple things that I heard. I heard you're a modern family. You're a modern family. You have a biological son that you had to fight for. You have
Yes.
a stepson that you probably had to earn trust with.
Yes.
You have a current wife that used to be your ex-wife that was your former wife, and you guys had to reconcile. Okay, so you got the MDM program going, married, divorced, and married to the same woman, which I'm seeing more and more of, by the way.
Okay.
But I think it takes more character, more authenticity, and I don't speak from experience, but I think it does take more of that to remarry than it does to find somebody new.
It does. It took a lot of grace. It took a lot of humility, to actually find within both of our hearts to accept one another again. Because throughout that phase, most divorces, for the most part that I know of, don't usually end amicably. There's arguments, there's fuss, there's money, there's insurance, there's houses, there's cars, and things could get pretty nasty. So for us to work through all of our issues, all the things that we'll deal with, to earn the graces of my stepson, for my son to be integrated back with my wife now, to be honest with you, my first wife, my ex-wife, our relationship is a whole lot much better now, just through growth and maturity and things like that. All of our relationship is a whole lot better. But it was through all of those different steps in maturity and things that we had to work through where we started seeing some divine things where God was just showing up in many different places, and my wife is like, you are a completely changed person. You are a completely different person now. God is doing some miraculous things inside of you. I see how you work with the kids. I see how you work with your business. I see how you work with the people, and you've done a complete 360. So some of like the things that I was doing, obviously when I was younger, some of the things that I was integrating into our relationship was not healthy. And it was kind of like the thing back then, they used to say like they felt like they was walking around on eggshells within our household. And as I thought about that, that really like hurt me to think about, as a dad, as a father, as a protector within your household, your family does not feel safe around you and things like that. And I had to get rid of that and change that within our household. So that's what I said to you. Like I had to like do a lot of soul searching, a lot of personal development, a lot of things that I had to like really tap into and free myself of some things so I could be a better person, a better version for my family.
Michael, one of the things that my wife and I did was we went to a marriage conference this last year, a few months ago, and one of the things that still rings true in my mind is the concept of having a covenant marriage compared to a convenient marriage.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that when I first got married, I signed up for the convenient marriage.
Mm-hmm.
As long as it's good for me, cook for me, love me, all the different things that wives do, we're good.
Mm-hmm.
And my measuring stick was that.
Mm-hmm.
How's it going? Well, it depends on how it's going in all these categories. And in the conference, I made light of the idea that it needs to be, for it to last and prosper, it needs to be a covenant marriage. What is good for God, what is good for her in those same areas, those same criteria. And it gives you a whole different perspective. It's not what's in it for me.
Mm-hmm.
It's really what's in it for God. And why did he put you guys together? And so for you and Courtney, it's really, what is the message that you can pass on to young couples that are struggling, that are contemplating divorce, and the guy doesn't see any other way, and the woman's like, I'm done with this guy. You can help people reconcile before they file for divorce through your story and through your success together.
Well, you're speaking that into the air and put into existence, but that's something that me and my wife has been wanting to do. And she was on a flight coming back from Corey's graduation last week, and she was next to a lady, and she was telling her the same story that I just told you. And the lady was like, "Where's your book? Where's your podcast? Where's your story?" That was a testimony that God has from your stories, is a testimony for so many couples out here. And I believe you that you're so right when it comes to these circumstances and situations are much more prevalent in these days and times where there's quite a few. I don't know the stats around it, but I'm pretty sure there's a high number of blended families in this day and age, in this day and time. The divorce rate, I do know, is at a higher rate and things like that. So when you say that in regards to like there's a calling for us to share our story and be out here and try to help families and rebuild families or keep families connected, I do agree with you that that is a calling that of something that we could be and should be out here doing that.
Amen. Okay, so as a dad, you've got two boys. One's embarking into the real world. One is got the whole world in front of him. I mean, he could be a D1 running back somewhere. He could be, God knows what's going to happen to him. He's dreaming big. Okay.
Yes.
As a man, as a dad, how do you interact with your two sons in such a way that they know you have a past. They know you've been places. You've been to dark places, and they've probably seen some of that stuff over the years. How do you get them to focus on Michael Allison 2024, the version that you are today, the man that you've become today, and help them become more like who you are today?
It's through my actions. Simply that. It's through my actions. You know, once I was able to build our family, have a strong foundation within our faith, within God, that's first and foremost within our household. And once we created that within our household and all that we do, and they saw me and my wife now as a team. Prior to that, we were separated in regards to how we operated within the household. So the kids kind of knew which parent to play with, which parent to go to, know those different types of things. But now they know that we're on the same forefront in regards to our belief, our purpose, what we stand for, things that's going to be expected within this household. So they understand that. So first and foremost, I would say I started with me, but definitely that partnership or that alignment within our household between me and my wife. When it comes to the boys, you know, what I had to do is be honest with them, be totally transparent with them. I put my information in the stories on podcasts and books and things like that. But before I did that, I sat them both down, and before that information made it out, I told them the type of person that I was, why I was acting the way I was, and what was going on with me. And from there, I genuinely apologized to them. I generally apologize to them in regards to like how I behaved, how I acted, how I treated them, and what I was going to do to earn their trust and rebuild our family and for us to move forward. And through my actions, they have clearly seen me change into the man that I am now, the man of faith, the leader that I am, the business owner that I am, the person that's taking time out to sit down with them, understand things that they're going through, the person that's sitting down with them to teach them how to go out here and treat a woman, how to be out here respectful, how to be out here and stay out of trouble, how to go ahead and carry themselves in school. You know, I would say I'm proud to say that our boys are doing excellent. Our youngest son, he's a 4.4 GPA student, doing great. And he's getting ready to prep for, he's getting ready to go on some football tours this upcoming summer. And he has a big senior year coming. You know, our oldest son, Corey, just graduated. And as he's entering into the workforce, as soon as he graduated, I was not able to make the graduation. He called me. And that was one of the proudest moments of my life, to have him call me, as knowing where our relationship was at before to know where it's at now. You know, so knowing that I'm a dad and a father, where they know that they could call me, they could talk to me, I'm there for them, I'm their biggest supporter, I'm their biggest cheerleader. And I'm also going to be the one that's also going to also just keep them accountable and keep them on the straight and narrow path as well too.
Okay. Michael, my brain's going about a million different places, but I just want for our audience, because not everybody has been to the brink of death like you have. Not intentionally, not self-inflicted. Okay. A lot of times when people are in your situation and they're in some type of war, disaster, or tragedy, it's them almost dying. In your case, you were fine. I mean, obviously you probably had some issues, with your health from that situation. Yours was because it was after that.
And
So when you're on that bridge, how do you help clients that are on that bridge? How do you help people that are on that bridge? There's somebody out there listening right now that's on that bridge. Give them like 3 or 4 or 5 steps that they can do today to get off the bridge.
To get off of this bridge, for me, as I mentioned, man, it was one of the most sobering, eye-opening moments for me. And it was where my childhood self was showing myself, like my innocence is showing where I'm loved, showing my family cares about me, and God was speaking to me through my mom. And my mom was telling me, like, you have so much of a purpose, you have so much out here to give this world, and you have so much more to live for. So the person that's listening is, I want you to forgive yourself of anything that has ever occurred for you, as in, it's not your fault. Things are going to occur to you, things are going to come into your life and things like that, but it's how you're going to handle it and how you're going to deal with it. The number one thing that I had to start doing was understanding what is my purpose out here, right? We all are here on this earth for a reason. Let's identify what is our purpose. Once you start identifying your purpose, you'll start understanding what are your values. What are some things that you need to get aligned to yourself? And once you start understanding what are your values, then you'll start understanding the circumstances and situations that you're in and circumstances and situations that you do not need to be in. The next thing I'm going to say to you is, let's start working on our mindset, right? Let's start working on that growth mindset in regards to having the life that you're trying to create, the lifestyle that you're trying to create, and the places and things that you need to be. Let's start working on that resilience, right? So if you're in that very dark place, that adversity or that challenge that you're facing, let's spin that and turn that into your gift. Let's turn that into the aspect in regards to creating that mindset of, all of these things has occurred to me. How can I use this to be a blessing to other people? The other part I'm going to say to you is think about like leadership now. For me, when I look at leadership, I always look at self-leadership first. How can you start leading yourself before you start leading other people? To be a great leader, you got to learn how to inspire people and empower people from your story and from some things that are occurring to you. So how can you start leading by example? For myself, I was in a very dark place, right? And I was not being a very good leader. And once I started taking accountability and responsibility of things that were occurring to me, I started leading by example. And from there, share my story, share my example. Now I'm getting people to follow me as well. And then, I think we all need to do the 5 Ps and start putting a plan together. Put that plan together where you can start executing all of the things that you need to accomplish in life. And when you're putting that plan together, making sure that it aligns, make sure it's a full clarity in all of the things. For myself, I'm faith-based, so everything that I'm doing, it has to align with my Lord and Savior Jesus Christ. So if you're a listener or somebody that's listening, right, when you start identifying your purpose, you start identifying your values, some of these things that we're talking about, when you start identifying things within that mindset space, just making sure that they all align. So like all of your plans, all of your goals, all of your dreams and things like that, and it gives you a clear path in the direction of where you need to go. One of the things that one of my mentors has always taught me was, once you understand some of those things that I just mentioned, it makes it a whole lot easier to say no to a lot of things that may come your way. We live in this world where we often will say yes to a lot of things, and we're saying yes to things that has no alignment and things that we don't have nothing doing in some of these things. But once you understand some of those things and you have a good foundation of that, then it makes it so much easier and give you so much clarity and alignment for yourself.
Well, one of the things that you've mentioned multiple times is your faith. And one of the things that became very clear to you when you're on that bridge was that your creator is basically telling you it's not your time. It's
Right.
not your time, not yet. And so I think the thing that I would add to what you just said is get connected to your creator, get connected to God, and exercise a part of our life that we typically don't spend a lot of time on. We
Hmm.
spend more time on our fitness, more time on our diet, more time on our skills and our career than we do on our faith. And I think that, like you said, you put God in the back seat. I've put God in the back seat many times. And
Hmm.
so Jesus take the wheel, that country song, Jesus take the wheel. Can you allow Jesus to take the wheel?
That's exactly it, man. We can't go through life and having God in the back seat and only reach out to him whenever we need him. You right there. Yeah, okay, I need your help. Well, today's that I'm gonna ask for prayers and forgiveness and things like that. When he should be there in every single decision that you're making in life and business, in your relationships, all those things, where you don't have to ever do that and look in the back seat asking God for help because he's as long as he's always there with you and present with you, then you don't need to do that.
Absolutely. Michael, I want to thank you for being on Pro Mindset today. You're a breath of fresh air. I love your story. I love your impact that you're making now as a father, as a husband, in your career. And I wish you nothing but the best this weekend when you give your keynote about integrating in your family and the message related to your family. I want to thank you for being on Pro Mindset.
I appreciate it, Craig. Thank you so much, man.
Hey, it's Craig Domann, the host of Pro Mindset Podcast. I want to thank you for listening or watching today's show. And you can catch us every week on the normal social media platforms like YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, and all the listening podcast platforms. I hope you enjoyed today's show. And more importantly, I hope you gained a pro mindset insight. Please be sure to rate and review Pro Mindset Podcast. And I look forward to catching up with you on our next show.